Hello everybody and welcome back to Flyout. Today we're going to be trialing something a little bit different, not just in the aircraft that we're building, as today we are building a turboprop. And if you're not 100% what turboprop means, it doesn't mean a propeller powered by a turbo, it means a propeller powered by a turbine. And the difference between that is many and vast. We basically have a jet engine which is being used not to generate propulsive force by emitting the hot air out of the exhaust. We're generating propulsive force by driving a shaft in the center which powers a propeller at the front of the aircraft. And that is a technique that is fairly commonly used, but nowhere near as common as just putting a jet engine in, for reasons that I will get into at some point soon. And since I'd never done this before, I decided to take this on as kind of like a single-seat fighter, which is a little bit like the Wyvern, I guess, in terms of concept, but in terms of looks, I was going for more of like a Supermarine Sea Fang, kind of like super late World War II, early Cold War fighter design. The engine might be a little bit more 1960s kind of engine rather than 1950s or 1940s, but you know, we can suspend our disbelief for a moment. It's Flyout. That's the fun of it all, is making things that don't make sense at all. So yeah, I mean, I hope you enjoy this one, but just before we get into the main part of the building segment, which is going to be slightly longer today, this video is sponsored, so if you can just spare a minute to listen, this really helps out the channel. So without any further ado, this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. I'm sure you've heard the name by now, but did you hear they've got hundreds of heroes to collect, in-depth and exhilarating RPG battle systems, some of the best mobile graphics you'll find, and intense player versus environment boss fights? It sounds good, right? So let me tell you a little bit more. One of the hardest bosses right now in Raid is Hydra, and I'm sure you've heard of a Hydra before, but have you heard of this one with its 6 different heads, each with different abilities? We've got the head of Blight, the head of Torment, the head of Mischief, the head of Wrath, the head of Decay, and my personal favourite, the head of Suffering. The head of Suffering is the Hydra's main tank head with a brand new debuff called Pain Link, causing your champions to take a cut of the damage they cause to the Hydra right back on themselves. Sharing is caring, and this head really cares about sharing its suffering with you, which is oddly reminiscent of me on a Monday before I've had my coffee. With all of this and more waiting just a few taps away, what are you waiting for? Use the link in my description or scan my QR code to get insane bonuses such as an epic champion errant knight of the Balance faction, as well as a whole host of useful items. Once you're all in and set up, you can find me there under the username Patchbits, and hopefully I'll be high enough level soon to set up a clan, so if you're quick enough you might be able to snag a slot in that. So just hit the link below and I will see you on the battlefield. And yeah, so as I hinted at before the small break there, what is a turboprop engine and why does this technology even exist? Why not just put a turbine engine poking out of the back, just like everybody else seems to do? Well, there are a couple of advantages, and most of the time those advantages are admittedly fairly limited. But the general idea of a turboprop engine is that by spinning that drive shaft and then spinning the propeller through a gearbox, you can get better performance at kind of low speed. Acceleration, I guess, is the best way to put it. Obviously, you're trading off significant amounts of your high end, which is why you don't see this kind of technology used on anything that needs to go above Mach 1, because propellers essentially turn into parachutes once you start getting to that kind of a speed, because you just cannot physically produce thrust with a thing spinning that fast. Jet engines get around that with the expansion of air. That's how they manage to do that. So obviously, we're going to be focusing here on acceleration rather than top speed, which you can imagine is particularly useful for carrier operations, and that is where you tend to see this technology at fairly large amounts. So things like the Osprey, the V-22, I'm pretty sure, that has turboprop engines, the C-130 Hercules, which can sometimes operate from a carrier, if I'm not mistaken. I could be completely wrong about that, but I think it's an option that they have, only on big carriers, granted, but still helpful for very short takeoffs with such a heavy aircraft, which is designed to just kind of get in there. And the Tu-95, I think, has the most powerful turboprops that have ever been fitted to an aircraft, but I mean, it's a fairly widespread technology, really, and it originated in World War II. I mean, I think the first aircraft to actually fly with a turboprop engine was in 1941 by Hungary, of all people, which is a little bit of an odd one. It's not really the person that you would expect, but yeah, this technology has been around for quite some time. However, it's never really been preferable to just putting a jet on the back of your fighter aircraft. So you tend to see it used more on slightly unusual purposes, which is why perhaps some of you have never heard of a turboprop before, and that's perfectly reasonable. But yeah, I mean, they're cool, kind of. That's why we're putting one on today. I can't say it's the most practical thing. I imagine the mechanical reliability of an engine like this, combined with the ease of taking off from a short runway using a general normal piston-powered engine, combined with also manufacturing cost, development time, and by the time that you would have jet engines powerful enough to achieve the performance this thing does, just the better performance you could straight up get out of a jet would basically render this thing redundant the moment it rolled off the production line. But this thing would probably be... you could see it getting proposed as a design, if not actually produced as a design. And if anything, that's just as good as being built, right? Okay, so let's talk inspiration for a moment here. So, alongside a couple of comments and a couple of suggestions left in the suggestions channel on my Discord, which is linked in the description, by the way, if you want to go there, this is heavily inspired by kind of two aircraft for the most part. We've got the Supermarine Spiteful, and therefore Fang, which was kind of just the naval variant of the Spiteful, and the Westland Wyvern, which was a turboprop aircraft. So the Westland Wyvern, I'm sure fair amounts of you are familiar with now, kind of popularized by the game that we do not talk about. And I mean, that is just turboprop. It was a naval fighter. The turboprop allowed it to have very good acceleration and get off the deck of a carrier very easily. There's a very loud vehicle outside. Bear with. Okay, window closed and loud vehicle stopped. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the Wyvern. Yes, the Western Wyvern was a kind of ground attack aircraft thing, and I think, as far as I'm aware, the Westland was considered fairly good, actually. They built, yeah, a couple of them, 127 of them, and for a propeller aircraft built in 1946 to 1956, I'm going to say that's fairly successful, because that's some pretty hefty competition that they were getting at that point in time. But obviously, not the most long-lasted aircraft. It was retired in 1958, only 2 years after the last ones were built, which is, yeah, a little bit unfortunate, but such is the life of propeller aircraft during the dawn of the jet age, and a similar fate befell the Supermarine Spiteful, for that matter. It was basically, specifically was meant to replace the Spitfire. It was meant to become the main aircraft of the Royal Air Force, but there's a reason that you've never really heard of it before. Basically, what they determined is that the Spiteful just didn't do anything that the Spitfire didn't do, so there was not really any point of bringing it into service. The Spitfire could do everything that they needed it to do, and they were already building it. It was cheaper, more reliable, didn't take development costs, and so Supermarine went, well, if you don't want it, we'll make a naval version. As is typically the way, the Navy gets saddled with all of the things that the Army or the Air Force don't want. But yeah, we ended up with the Fang, which was basically a Spiteful with folding wings, which I think went a little bit further in its development process, but once again, just nowhere near as good as the jet aircraft that were being developed at the time. It was thought for a small moment in time that it wouldn't be possible to take a jet aircraft off from a carrier due to the lower acceleration at the low end of kind of RPMs, but jets kind of got better at doing that, and aircraft carriers got steam catapults, so in the end it didn't really matter that they had lower acceleration at the very, very low end. It mattered that you could push a jet aircraft up above 900 kilometers an hour without some crazy, crazy engineering finesse. Which definitely in propeller aircraft could be a little bit on the difficult side. But, you know, undeterred, Supermarine, and this is it's become a little bit of a history lesson on Supermarine here. I'm hoping that I'm not wrong about these things. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about, but obviously do not take my word as gospel here. There are people on the internet who have done whole videos on these, and if you want to read up more, look them up. But yeah, the Spiteful ended up, well, probably more the Fang, there we go, that's the one, ended up being developed into the Supermarine Attacker, which was built in some numbers, actually. However, once again, it was another one of those aircraft that the moment that it was built, it kind of just became redundant, and so they went, oh man, that was a shame. What do we do with the Attacker? Which was a reasonable aircraft, but not really good enough. Well, they developed it into the Supermarine Swift, and oh look, suddenly it's turning into a bit of a decent aircraft, but you know, there's still other aircraft which are out building it, so let's develop it into the Supermarine 545, and they never built that one. It didn't get off the construction line, and thus ended the Spitfire's tale. I'm sure a couple of you, as I was not aware, were not aware of the fact that the Spitfire was directly developed into the Attacker, which was directly developed into the Swift. So there you go. You may have learned something new, or you maybe already knew that. And hey, look, the aircraft is on the runway, and it's crashed. Yeah, I mean, we were about in a position where we could start flying this thing, but I had a small problem in that the nose would push itself up so much that we were going into a stall, so I had to move the center of lift a little bit further back by moving the wings back, and then voila, she is up into the air and performing quite nicely at low speeds, I've got to say, but yeah, the top speed left a little bit to be desired, as well as the general how do you say, stability. There was definitely an effect where if you turned particularly harsh in this thing, it would just kind of fall out of the sky because it would stall. But yeah, I mean, that wasn't too much of an issue. All we had to do to deal with that was kind of just limit how much you turned. It's nice to have the capability to turn so hard that you fall out of the sky, in case you really, really want to turn so hard that you fall out of the sky. You know, inducing a stall can sometimes be beneficial. And we're doing a basic internal here. I really do not know how the wizards managed to pull off full detailed interiors on these things. That is beyond me at the moment. I want to learn. maybe I'll pester Messier to give me a tutorial at some point. The man pulls off interiors that I can only dream of. You can catch me in the comment section of his videos looking longfully at the aircraft that man builds. I can strongly recommend his content if you're looking for a little bit more Flyout to bide you over. It's good stuff, what can I say? But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, we're reaching a visual, at least, point where the aircraft will be done, in inverted commas. So I don't actually do a livery on this thing in the building segment here. I did that off camera because I don't know. Let me know if you want to see the livery designing segment. I felt that it was the part that you guys would least care about. I thought you'd more be interested in seeing a more full and thorough building process of the actual aircraft. But this is, I'm trying something new here, so let me know in the comments below whether you would like to see the building segment minus when I start flight testing it, and when I start flight testing it, you'd like to see me actually live talk through what I'm thinking, like the thought process, or whether you're happy with this kind of post-commentary version of the thought process. Let me know. Would you like to go back to the old style, where I record a much shorter building segment, then we refine the aircraft, and then we do a little bit of flying? Now, I am trialing this in Flyout because I think it's a better fit for Flyout than Sprocket. Obviously, Sprocket, you've got all the levels to go through, so we've got plenty of time to actually use the vehicle in the video, and in Flyout, frankly, it's a little bit less in terms of things to do once the aircraft is built. You can fly it, you can shoot at a target drone, but if you go slower than the target drone, then you can't really shoot at the target drone, even though we sure as hell tried that with our World War I biplane. That was a great video, if you've not seen that. We strapped an AIM-9 onto the bottom of a biplane and tried to shoot down a target drone. It missed, but it came closer than it had any right in doing. But yeah, we're just kind of adding the finishing touches now. So we're adding 4 20mm cannons in the wings, head cannon, these are Hispano 5s, and then 2 200-round drum magazines in the wings, giving us a total ammo loadout of 800 20mm rounds, which is a fair amount of 20mm. I'm sure you'd manage to burn through that, but it would take you a fair long time to get through that, especially with the fire rate as disappointing as these ones are. And now was the time for the really fiddly bit. It was time to tune our propeller to find out, hey, what kind of pitch do we need on the center, what kind of pitch do we need on the middle, and what kind of pitch do we need on the front? But I think you can do without seeing that, because it's just kind of rinse and repeat. So I will leave you here and we will go on to the flying segment. So I will see you in the past, technically. Ooh. Okay, so here it is for our test flight, and I've got to say before we take off, this thing is a little bit on the ludicrous side. Yeah, it turns out you can actually get quite a lot of performance out of a prop engine when you just power it with a massively overpowered jet. So there you go. It turns rather well, and it climbs rather well. We're still accelerating here at 40 degrees, so you can imagine that this thing has quite good performance compared to at least its visual competitors. I think the jet engine might be a little bit too strong in this one. At the same time, where's the fun if we don't take this opportunity to put a ridiculously powerful engine into a propeller fighter? So, yeah, I mean, we've got 4 20mm cannons just on the wings here. They're quite far out, which might make it a little bit awkward to aim, but, you know, that's fine. Who needs to aim when you can go, I think it's about 860 kilometers an hour flat on the trot? Okay, here we are on a flat-ish trajectory going 830 and still accelerating a little bit. So you can imagine this is about the limit of the realistic top speed, but you could probably squeeze a little bit more out of it if you were particularly careful with your propeller RPMs. But yeah, I mean, we've basically built the super fighter of all props here. I think this might be a little impractical to actually make, but should it be made, this would definitely be remembered as not only the fastest, but probably also one of the most agile fighters built, because, I don't know, somehow I've made something that can pull comfortably about 12 Gs above 500 kilometers an hour, so I mean, it's a little bit deadly. Yeah, the pilot would probably be reduced to mush at certain points, but, you know, that's okay, really. You know, they should just be ready for that. That's part of the job. And, of course, when we're going this fast, I think we might actually be able to catch up with the target drone. They may be jet-powered, but so are we. Okay, we're bearing in behind this drone right now. And I want to close the distance to something a little bit more reasonable before we press the trigger here, but I think this shouldn't be too bad to keep up with. And oh god, they're making a turn. That's going to make my life a little bit harder here, but here we go. Let's see if we can pull off a gun kill here. There we go. Yes! That is the first time in this game that I've actually taken out a target with guns. And you know what? I don't care that they can't maneuver. I'm not very good at this. Do you mind falling out of the sky, though? You're just kind of burning in a straight line. I'd say that's rather fatal, but if you could actually, like, go down, that'd be grand. Oh, here we go. I think that's it. I think that's a hill. Oh, he's still going. Ah, there we go. Okay, scratch one. Let's take it back for a landing, shall we? Well, it seems we're a little too aerodynamic for our own good here. I was trying to slow down, but we're just going to have to do some wiggles, I think. We didn't give it long enough. Okay, flaps out, and that should help us slow down just a little bit more. Oh, man. All the way, please. Oh, goodness me. We're still accelerating, actually, is what's going on here. Let's turn the engine off fully, because I feel like the idle throttle is accelerating us now. Okay, and down we go. Just a little bit more. Oh, man. The contra-rotating props are actually quite unpredictable when you're coming in for a landing. They seem to have a tendency to swap which one is providing more torque to the aircraft and giving you a little bit of roll. But there we go. Touchdown number 1, touchdown number 2. And can we get a final touchdown rather than bouncing? Yes! Touchdown number 3. Oh, that's not good. Oh, the brakes are a little bit... just feather them. Just give them a little bit of feathering. There we go. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, well, no extra speed, but we're happily plodding along at 800 kilometers an hour up here at 10,000 meters, and from up here, man, what a view. If we head into first person, look, it leaves a little bit to be desired. I'm not a professional, okay? Oh, man. This is neat. I like this. This is chill. But, yeah, I mean, if you agree that this is chill and neat, then you can leave a like, comment, and or subscribe on this video. Yep, I fit that in somehow. But, yeah, I hope to see you for more things like this in the future. Goodbye! And as always, a huge thanks to this channel's patrons: Badger, Burn and Potato, CamJam135, Cody N, DJ Pete, Skavoon, Gunmaster929, Sad Cat, Just a Casual T6201, Last Urgent 11, Mark, Mildly Invested, Nicholas K, Rolsosbocken, Ryan Brody, The Canesian Emperor, Zarasheim, and Zeit Wolverine. Thank you very much for the support.